Chrisean rock is unraveling after Jaidyn Alexis released Jr.'s confidential medical information, and once the details became public, the story Chrisean has been telling for years started to collapse. What the records revealed was deeply troubling. Jr. reportedly went most of his first year without consistent medical care, had no regular pediatrician, and several health issues that were brushed off as nothing serious may never have been properly addressed at all. Fans had already been uneasy about Jr.'s well-being for quite some time, but this leak pushed that worry into something far more serious. Especially since Blueface had previously hinted that his son's health wasn't being handled with the urgency it deserved. Now, with actual documentation circulating online, those fears feel harder to dismiss. The pattern that's emerging is uncomfortable and impossible to ignore. But the situation doesn't stop at alleged neglect. Jaidyn is making an even more disturbing claim, that Jr. could be actively unsafe, suggesting Chrisean may be deliberately harming him over time. At first, that accusation sounds extreme, but when people began revisiting old live streams, clips, and overlooked moments that once seemed confusing or harmless, they suddenly took on a much darker meaning. Pieces that never quite fit before now appear to connect in a chilling way. This has gone far beyond internet gossip or influencer drama. What's unfolding looks more like a serious controversy with real-life consequences, and it seems to be spiraling fast. Many believe Chrisean is close to snapping, especially with Jaidyn leak making her appear reckless and irresponsible in the public eye. The backlash has been swift, and most of it centers on sympathy for Jr. According to the leaked documents, Jr. had little to no medical supervision during the most critical stages of his early development. This directly contradicts Chrisean's repeated claims that doctors had cleared him and that concerned fans were simply being hateful. In reality, it appears those reassurances may never have come from a doctor at all, because Jr. reportedly didn't even have a pediatrician until after his first birthday. As upsetting as that revelation is, many aren't shocked. Blueface had already suggested that Jr.'s health wasn't being treated as a priority. Now, with evidence backing up those concerns, the focus has shifted from speculation to serious alarm, and the question everyone is asking is whether this situation can get any darker from here. When Blueface called Chrisean out for delaying Jr.'s hernia surgery, that wasn't just a random argument, it was one of the first times he publicly suggested something serious was being ignored. He kept saying the procedure was getting pushed back for no clear reason, and he even hinted that Jr. might have been born with congenital complications. His tweet said it all. He wasn't focused on internet mess, he was focused on his son being in pain while, in his view, Chrisean acted like it wasn't a big deal. He never laid out the full details, but the implication was loud enough to make people uneasy. And now, with Jaidyn leaking medical records, a lot of those long-standing questions are resurfacing with new intensity, because this leak didn't happen in a vacuum. Just days before the records hit the internet, Chrisean was already catching heat during a live stream when viewers heard Jr. in the background. His breathing didn't sound normal. It didn't sound like a simple cold. It sounded strained, like he was working too hard just to inhale. The chat immediately shifted from casual comments to outright panic, with people urging her to get him checked out. Chrisean, as expected, pushed back. She framed the concern as hate, insisted her son was fine, and dismissed it as just a cough and nothing more. But that explanation didn't sit well with people listening, because when something sounds that rough, it's nothing doesn't feel reassuring. It feels evasive. What made things escalate even further was the response from medical professionals online. Multiple doctors, reacting to the audio circulating, said it sounded like there could be fluid in his lungs, something that needs urgent evaluation because it can spiral quickly if ignored. And that's where the conversation took a darker turn. According to Jaidyn, neglect isn't the worst part, she claims it's intentional. In her version of events, Chrisean doesn't want Jr. and has allegedly been looking for ways to get rid of him for a long time. It's an extreme allegation, but it gained traction because fans immediately connected it to older moments that now look different in hindsight. People remember that from the very start, back when Chrisean first announced her pregnancy, she didn't exactly radiate excitement about becoming a mom. She openly expressed uncertainty about keeping the baby. And more recently, she reportedly admitted she sometimes wishes he hadn't been born. Those statements didn't vanish, they stayed in the public memory, and now they're being replayed like evidence. At the same time, there's a complicated layer here that even critics acknowledge: motherhood can be crushing under normal circumstances. And if Jr. truly needs extra support, medically, developmentally, emotionally, that pressure multiplies fast. Add the lack of visible stability, the absence of a solid support system, the constant cameras, and non-stop judgment, and it becomes easy to see how someone could spiral. A lot of people would. But despite that, public sympathy has limits, and many viewers feel she crossed them a long time ago. Not because they don't understand struggle, but because they believe the struggle is tied to choices she kept making in real time, even after becoming responsible for a child. That's why comments from Blueface's family hit as hard as they did. His mother, Carissa, was one of the first to say what many people were only hinting at, that Chrisean's behavior during pregnancy may have contributed to Junior's condition. Partying, instability, risky choices, she framed it as more than messy, implying it was harmful. Blueface echoed similar themes, suggesting her lifestyle didn't reflect someone protecting an unborn baby. And when both the father and grandmother are saying variations of the same thing, public opinion doesn't just shift, it hardens. Still, what truly flipped concern into outrage wasn't just what people believe happened during pregnancy. It was what they think is happening now. Clips, live stream moments, and offhand comments started being treated like proof that Junior isn't simply in a chaotic home, he might be in an unsafe one. The internet stopped watching for entertainment and started watching like investigators, rewinding, analyzing, comparing timelines, listening for what's happening off camera. And that's the point where this stops feeling like celebrity drama and starts feeling like a genuine welfare alarm, because when a child's health is the center of the story, the stakes are no longer just reputational. They're real. Then Jaidyn spoke up, and that's when the narrative crossed into deeply unsettling territory. According to her, the reason Junior hasn't shown signs of real improvement or healthy development isn't neglect, ignorance, or lack of access to care. She claimed it's something far more sinister, that Chrisean has been intentionally poisoning him over time. Slowly. On purpose. Not a mistake. Not recklessness. A deliberate act. Jaidyn went even further, alleging that Chrisean harbors resentment toward her own child and has quietly explored multiple ways to get rid of him. These aren't casual accusations. They're the kind that make a room go silent, the kind that force even doubtful listeners to pause and ask why anyone would make claims this extreme unless something felt seriously wrong. At face value, the allegation sounds almost impossible to accept. The idea of a mother intentionally harming her own child is one of society's deepest taboos, so the instinctive reaction is disbelief. People want to write it off as bitterness, clout chasing, or pure malice. But that's not what happened here. Instead of brushing it aside, a large portion of the audience leaned in, and that alone says a lot. Jaidyn's words didn't land in empty space. They landed on a foundation already cracked by months of questionable moments, missed care, and visible detachment. For a long time, fans had been pointing out instances where Chrisean appeared emotionally checked out around Junior. At first, people tried to excuse it as stress, exhaustion, or a young mother being overwhelmed. But as those moments piled up, the benefit of the doubt started to disappear. What people thought they were seeing stopped looking like isolated lapses and started resembling a pattern. And once the internet believes there's a pattern, everything changes. Every new clip feels intentional. Every mistake looks calculated. Every silence becomes suspicious. Some viewers began openly saying it didn't look like she simply didn't know what she was doing, it looked like she didn't care. Whether Junior was crying, uncomfortable, or visibly distressed, her response, or lack of one, felt the same. Detached. Unbothered. And for some, that detachment crossed into something even darker. They started saying it felt like she was letting harm happen slowly, quietly, hoping no one would notice until it was too late. One moment in particular refuses to fade from public memory, the Twitch live stream. She was live, distracted, glued to her phone, locked into a conversation with Blueface. At one point, she asked Twitch staff to place Junior in the car because she needed to stay on the call. That alone raised serious questions. Why was her baby being handled by employees instead of her? But what followed is what truly disturbed people. Junior was left in the car, crying uncontrollably. Viewers could hear him. They could sense the panic in his cries. And yet, Chrisean stayed off camera, continued her call, and showed no urgency to check on him. No rush. No visible concern. She didn't interrupt what she was doing. She didn't react the way most parents instinctively would. That moment felt cold to a lot of people, not because parents never mess up, but because her emotional response seemed absent altogether. That clip has since been replayed and dissected endlessly. People pointed out that babies don't cry without reason, and while parents aren't perfect, there's usually an instinct to respond. In that moment, Junior didn't feel like a priority. He felt like background noise. And once viewers absorbed that, everything else snapped into focus: the alleged skipped appointments, the lack of routine, the chaotic environments, the constant stress and instability. Suddenly, it stopped looking like a mother struggling and started looking like a child being emotionally abandoned in plain sight. So when Jaidyn made those extreme claims, people didn't laugh. They didn't immediately dismiss her. Many simply said, at this point, nothing would surprise me. And that's the most dangerous place public perception can land. When the benefit of the doubt disappears, every rumor feels believable. Every accusation sounds possible. Every defense looks performative. What makes all of this even more heartbreaking is that Junior is the one trapped in the middle. He didn't choose this life. He didn't ask to be born into chaos, live streams, or public conflict. Yet his existence has been reduced to clips, speculation, and online debates, while the adults around him argue publicly instead of protecting him privately. At this stage, the audience isn't even focused on Chrisean versus Blueface anymore. The spectacle has lost its entertainment value. People are watching with fear and frustration, asking why no one has stepped in. Why authorities haven't intervened. Why family members are fighting online instead of closing ranks around a child. And most importantly, how much more Junior is expected to endure before something changes. Whether Jaidyn allegations are true or not, the fact that so many people are willing to believe them speaks volumes about how badly Chrisean's image as a mother has eroded. Once the internet starts seeing you as a potential danger to your own child, that narrative is nearly impossible to reverse. And until there is undeniable proof that Junior is safe, supported, and genuinely cared for, these accusations, no matter how extreme they sound, aren't going anywhere. They're only getting louder. And hovering over all of this is Blueface himself, the same person who has repeatedly said the child isn't his and that he never wanted Chrisean or her baby. Those words alone cast a long, dark shadow. No matter how messy adult relationships become, a child doesn't ask to be born into rejection. Yet from the very beginning, Junior's life has unfolded under public denial and indifference, watched in real time by millions. When Twitch staff urged Chrisean to go get her son, it wasn't casual advice, it was concern. Genuine concern. Outsiders could see something was wrong. Still, she seemed unmoved. By the time she finally went to him, Junior was coughing from crying so hard, his tiny body showing clear signs of distress. That moment stayed with people because it didn't feel like a one-off mistake, it felt like a window into something deeper. Then there's the account from Bino, who claimed that when Junior fell badly enough to risk serious injury, Chrisean didn't rush to him or even appear bothered. Most parents react instantly when their child falls. Even strangers do. Panic kicks in. Fear takes over. But what was described wasn't shock or worry, it was indifference. And when moments like that are shared publicly, people can't help but wonder how much worse things might be when no one is watching. If the behavior people are already seeing online is this glaring, it forces an even more frightening question. What would things look like if the more extreme claims were happening behind the scenes, out of view? That's where the conversation shifts from uncomfortable to downright terrifying. There's a massive difference between neglect and intentional harm. One is dangerous enough on its own, but the other changes everything. Those leaked medical records only add fuel to that fear. According to them, Junior reportedly went most of his first year without seeing a doctor at all. That isn't a small oversight. The first year of life is when doctors track growth, development, reflexes, and early warning signs. Missed checkups mean missed chances to catch problems early, when intervention matters most. And as people revisit old statements and past concerns, the timeline starts lining up in ways that are hard to brush off as coincidence. It also connects with claims made by people who were once close to the situation. Janet, a former friend, said she tried to help by offering access to her cousin, a specialist in developmental issues, but that offer was allegedly shut down. What disturbed people wasn't just the refusal, but the reason it couldn't be dismissed. This wasn't about money, availability, or lack of resources. Help was right there, and it was declined. Janet didn't whisper this quietly either, she put it out publicly, making it clear that concern for Junior's development had been brewing behind the scenes for a long time. Then Monique Slaughter added another piece that shook people even more. She stated outright that Junior didn't have a pediatrician and hadn't seen one in nearly a year. That wasn't speculation, it was someone on the inside saying a toddler was going without basic medical care. At that point, the narrative shifted. This wasn't just the internet overanalyzing clips. It was first-hand accounts confirming what fans feared but couldn't previously prove. From the beginning, the responsibility fell squarely on one person. There's no father listed on the birth certificate. Junior was born at a birthing center within a hospital, and standard follow-up care should have included pediatric visits within the first few weeks. That didn't happen. Not until public pressure mounted, specifically after Blueface called her out over Junior's hernia, did it appear that medical attention was finally sought. Even then, people say it wasn't consistent. One of the most alarming claims floating around is that she avoids taking him to doctors because she fears CPS involvement. Whether that's fully accurate or not, the implication alone is chilling. If fear of consequences is keeping a child from care, then that child is paying for adult choices. What makes this even harder to ignore is how many warning signs were visible long before things reached this point. When Junior was younger, fans noticed he didn't track movement or react the way most babies do. He could hold his head up, but he didn't reach for objects, crawl, or engage with his surroundings. He often just stared into space. People weren't mocking him, they were worried. They were asking the kinds of questions anyone would ask when something doesn't look right. As time went on, those concerns didn't fade. They intensified. Junior is now approaching 3 years old and reportedly still doesn't walk, something that would normally trigger immediate evaluations, therapy referrals, and neurological assessments. Instead, it became another issue brushed aside online. For a while, people assumed Chrisean was overwhelmed or emotionally detached. But if Jaidyn claims are even partially true, that detachment takes on a much darker meaning. Now, to be clear, Jaidyn's approach hasn't earned her a free pass. A lot of people see her as messy, calculated, and motivated by years of personal conflict. The timing, the public exposure, and the way everything was released makes it hard to ignore that there's bitterness driving her actions. She and Chrisean have a long, ugly history, and many believe this is about revenge as much as it is about concern. But here's the uncomfortable reality people can't shake: bad motives don't automatically mean false accusations. Someone can act out of spite and still tell the truth. Both things can exist at once. And that's what's haunting people, because if even a fraction of these claims are accurate, a child has been suffering while adults battle for image, control, and attention. At this point, everything feels like it's unraveling at once. Cash is furious. Jaidyn is dropping receipts. Screenshots, timelines, and statements are surfacing piece by piece, like fragments of a story no one wants to fully assemble. And Junior remains silent at the center of it all. He can't explain what's happening. He can't defend himself. All he has is what others observe, and the growing sense that something has gone terribly wrong. Between the leaked records, repeated allegations of neglect, and the most shocking claims of all, that he may be intentionally harmed, fans are no longer asking who's winning the feud. They're asking how this was allowed to continue in plain sight. People are questioning the systems meant to protect children, the adults who stayed quiet, the platforms that kept giving visibility, and even the audience that kept watching while warning signs stacked up. And maybe that's the most unsettling realization of all. None of this was hidden. It was live-streamed, uploaded, joked about, normalized. A child's well-being became background noise in an endless cycle of controversy. Now that the allegations are louder and impossible to ignore, people are realizing this was never just drama, it was a warning that went unheeded. How did it reach this point? And who is actually protecting Junior? One thing is clear: this story isn't slowing down. Every clip, every live stream, every new detail adds more fuel to the fire. Defenses are crumbling, accusations are escalating, and the internet is watching it all unfold in real time. And if anyone thinks this is the end, they're mistaken, because everything about this situation suggests it's only going to get messier, darker, and far more shocking from here.